coming to. I'm here to live it, make music. For y'all is just hanging on a gimmick, huh? Wait a minute, man. Don't get me confused with none of these newbie ass rappers, man. I know the game be feeling fucked up, but I've been making beats since '95, regardless if I had the right promotion or not. Word up. Hey yo, I ain't always humble, I ain't always intense. I've had my good and bad days like anyone else, more or less. Probably a lot more than less, sort of more of it in a sense. Feel blessed, so I just move forward through the stress. But don't smoke stress, smoke the bombest weed you ever seen. Cannabis club category, certified Cali green. Type of bomb that I keep up in my sack. They give a lot of cats anxiety attacks. There's no denying the facts. But enough about the weed though, I keep it on a need to know basis. It's time for me to cut to the chase quick. So download the free LP, spread it to your friends and family, even to the little haters mad at me. I got 2 official LPs coming after these. So far I'm grateful for the love that's coming back to me. Truly appreciate the support, especially my peeps that had my back when I was going in and out of court. But of course a shout out to all my people who kept the game alive instead of killing it, selling out with weak flows. My crew, anyone that gave an honest point of view. Much respect besides me, man. I do this shit for you, yeah, for you.
Welcome, folks. Happy Tuesday to everybody. Yes, Ian. That's my new signal. I'm coming in. It's like the bat signal. Cheers, everybody. I hope you guys are having a good day. It's Tuesday. The week started. Hope your weeks are going well. Happy to see everybody here. Oleg, Milan, Claudio, Sam, Ian, David, Luca. Good to see all of you guys. Let's see. Yeah, I basically stole the beer opening from our Wrong Effing Question podcast, but I feel like it works. It's like a little prepares you that I'm about to be surprised, even though I don't know why I'm surprised every time, since I'm the one that's saying this thing is starting. Okay, I think we have a good day today. We got some time lapses to look at. We're going to do some painting towards the end. And I think we're going to talk about kind of like progress and growth. In general, like self-growth, artistic growth, whatever you want to call it. Because basically you guys are watching me practice, not like my super personal everyday practice that I don't want to show to everyone all the time. But definitely like a form of, you're watching me practice something that I'm not that good at, that I want to get better at. And so let's talk about that for a little bit. So let's have a look-sees over here at where's the right one? There's the right one. So this is where this image ended up. I don't love everything about it. I'm happy about where it is overall. I'm much happier than I was with it back when we finished painting with it on Sunday? I want to say, yes, that was Sunday. So we have a time lapse to watch for this guy. I ended up spending like another 2 hours. I think we painted for almost an hour with it on Sunday, or actually maybe even a little over an hour, something like that. And I ended up spending another 2 hours on it. This is where it was after however long we painted online. I was not happy about it. I didn't hate it. This was the raw rendering. We took it from there. In some ways, it kind of got worse, but that's okay. It's a learning process. We'll look through the whole thing, the process today, the actual time frame. I shortened it down to like 10 minutes, so it happens very quickly. My major critique of like where it's at right now, I like that the way that the kind of composition changed from here, right? The sky went light up at the top. I ended up looking at a little bit of reference. I think the rocks got better. My big, I think, critique of it is that there's too much local contrast over here on the right. Right, the brights are a little too bright, the darks, my value control over there is not as good as it could be. I'd like that to, I didn't get the depth that I would have liked into it, but that's okay. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy about it. But one of the things that I want to show you guys before we look at the time lapse is something that I do a lot. A lot of times I post them on my ArtStation, these little, like, they're not really making ofs. Because when I work in Photoshop, I tend to just stack layers on top of each other. If I go through and just make solid layers every couple of layers whenever there was a big change, I basically have like a timeline of what I did in post. And so depending on how you work in Photoshop, that may or may not work. But you can make these really simple little GIFs that I like to watch when other people post them. Let's delete all of these, and I'll show you the quick way to make them. All we have here is just like, I went through my Photoshop file and just like turned off all the layers, turned on one. Every time something big happened, I just pressed Control Alt Shift E, which just made a merged copy, and I went through and then I deleted out all the actual layers. So there are all these solid layers all the way through all this. And you just go down here, you go to Window Timeline. If you don't see it, Window Timeline. And then if there's nothing, it'll usually say Make Frame Animation if you haven't already done it. And all you got to do is say Make Frames from Layers. And then it goes through and it puts all of your layers onto a single frame. Select the first one, select the last one, set it to some time, like I'm going to go for 0.5 seconds, half a second for all of them. And then you can just press play, and you can watch through without anything moving, like how you kind of got to where you got. So here's a little preview of what we're going to watch me actually drawing. But when you watch it this way, I feel like it's easy to see what you did, if you could have maybe spotted that earlier. I think the big thing that I missed when I was painting last time was when I was going in and roughing it up. I should have roughed it up more, which we're going to see. We're going to see right here in a second. There. Like, we really simplified it down, and then we built it back up. And I found that to be really helpful because it gave me a chance to get some of my values back in control. And then I kind of lost control over them again as this went on. But this I find to be very insightful for me, especially when you notice something, you're like, oh, look how long it took for you to notice X or Y or Z. So regardless of whether or not you're going to post them, I do, if you work in Photoshop in the similar messy kind of linear, more and more layers way that I do, typically, because I don't really use it as like a non-destructive way of working. I'm always working on whatever the top layer is, and I just keep building them. I find this to be helpful as far as to like get a better idea of what I was doing. So I recommend you guys try it. I'd love to know if you guys do, what you think. Milan, I don't think I'm in a place that I can say that you guys definitely have to be drinking beer. But I do feel like I should be doing it. So, the wife had to do a big resupply for groceries recently, and being the kind, wonderful woman that she is, she got me some more daytime beers, so I can have a beer with lunch and not, ruin the rest of my day, work-wise. Okay, so let us hop into watching the post on this guy so that we can actually, we're kind of just going to see me doing, the steps that we're seeing here. Oh, well, they stopped moving because I clicked away from it. But I guess I should also say, if you want to export the GIF from this, I don't know if this is the best way. I've been told it's not, but I just use Control Shift Alt S, which brings up this little Save for Web doodad, and it gives you an option of, or it freezes. Maybe it freezes. Either way, that's how I export the actual GIF. There we go. And then you can downsample it or do whatever you got to do. Okay. On to the time lapse, and let's talk a little bit about why I'm so excited about all this painting, what I'm trying to get to, and where I'm kind of tracking my own growth. Let's see. I think this is the one. That is the one, but it's supposed to be up here. Ooh, excuse me, folks. Okay. And then we got to change the screen to move the old coffee cup out of the way. There we go. So we can see me really quickly making a selection and then repainting the entire sky. You can kind of see the two reference images that I had up for a little while using PureRef. And I haven't used Pure Ref in forever, and I feel like I should start bringing it back with this endeavor. I think it's good. But I saw this sky, right? And like having a dark horizon is like a very stormy thing to do. Typically, the horizon's lighter than the sky up above. You'll see that like I kind of ruined everything I did, ruined in quotes, all the way through Saturday because I wasn't happy where it was at. And as opposed to going back to the beginning, I said I'm just going to keep painting forwards, right? But I'm going to do that by really kind of undoing everything effectively by painting it all over and then starting again. And it happens pretty quickly. Like I said, we're looking at 2 hours or 2 hours and 10 minutes, shortened down to 10 minutes here. But we're going to see that this image starts to look kind of like the final pretty quickly. And then I kind of noodle. So I've always loved this like painterly style in general. I was talking to one of my good friends about music, and he's been working on some fun stuff. And he sent me some like really rough recordings of it, of what he was doing. He's like, excuse the quality. I'm like, I love like this sketchy kind of like rough side. Like, I feel like it leaves so much more to the interpretation of the individual. And I feel the same way for visual art, which is, like the rough stuff leaves so much left that I need to fill in as a viewer, right? It doesn't hammer everything down. It doesn't feel too polished or overproduced. And there's something that I've always been very, very drawn to as a style, and I'd like to be able to create it at least for fun. And so you're kind of seeing me try to figure out how to do that effectively. And there's a few like ideas I have for like short graphic novels, or like there's a kid's story that I want to do, and like the style, I want it to be painterly. I don't want it to be photorealistically rendered. I don't want it to be like super bad cartoons. I want the whole thing to feel painterly. So I need to figure out how to do basically what I'm doing right now, but more efficiently, not necessarily needing a 3D backplate to get it. I'd like to get to the point where I can paint some characters in there, so that'll probably be coming as I get better at looking at these types of things, or drawing and painting these types of things. And I'd like to be able to do it efficiently. But I spent 2 hours continuing to like noodle on this, right? And like it's starting to kind of look like the final at this point, right? We continue to tweak it for another, what in real time was like an hour and 20 minutes. But, going slowly and like, okay, something wasn't going right last time. Let's try it over again. And I have a different idea for how I'm going to approach it as far as like methodology goes. And let's see how that works. And it was definitely a possibility that wouldn't have worked out either. And then I would have had to try something again. And that kind of like slow process of trial and error and taking the time to try to kind of figure some things out and learning these little lessons along the way, when you do those things slowly, because I'm a big fan of working quickly, obviously. This is an entire exercise in learning how to work even more quickly, really. But when you step back and work slowly when you're struggling with something or trying to figure something out, if you can get it figured out to some degree, or if you can learn something, that's a new, weapon in your arsenal or tool in your tool belt every time you move forward. And so somewhat recently gave a talk when I was over in Italy that was entitled Work Fast and Learn Slow. And that's kind of the idea, right? Like an hour of painting on Sunday didn't get me to where I wanted to. If I just kind of kept head down, just plowing through with the way that I was going, I probably wouldn't have learned much, except that something wasn't working, which there's value in that. But by slowing down and saying, okay, let's basically start over, close to it, right? Like let's paint this thing back down to like 4 colors and then start building it up again, is an attempt to, okay, something's not working, let's try some stuff. So that's kind of what that process has been. And you can see here, at some point I'm going to tone down the sky. There's too much local contrast in the sky. The building, besides where it's framed in the image, is not standing out at all. And so the sky gets toned down. I didn't tone down the right as much. I felt like I kept bringing in more contrast as I was trying to build depth into that, and I don't think I was successful there. So the next one we're going to be working on today has more mountains. They're different kinds of mountains, but they're a similar problem, I think, where it would be easy to introduce too much contrast. So I'm going to try and be a little bit more mindful of that while I'm working today and however much time I spend after it. But the whole idea of progress is like sometimes little lessons take a long time to learn, and that's okay, right? As long as you're learning something, and that was really loud. Sorry about that, folks. So yeah, when you're learning, things taking longer than you think that they should. Well, you're probably not in a position to know how long something like this would take. You just have an idea of what you want it to do. But you have to do it. You have to do it slow enough, such as that you're actually learning, right? And if that means slowing down for a little bit, it means slowing down for a little bit, and then you can speed up once you have an idea what you're doing again. So this guy, I don't know. I think it's probably getting close to done. I don't do a ton more, but there's still a little bit of time. So there's noodling, and I keep trying to fix the rocks and make some things better, and some things do get better, and some things get worse, and that's part of learning, I think. You get lucky sometimes. You try to learn from that, and when things come out not as well, you try and learn from that as well. What else do I have to say about progress? Those are my big thoughts on progress. Yeah, and don't expect much. Keep your expectations low, right, when you're learning something new. Any of these types of things take a while. Like, I feel like it's going to be a while before I feel really confident in this type of workflow and where I feel like I have control over it, as opposed to, well, this is what happened, and so I just kind of went with it. It takes time, and so you have to be patient with it. I think we're in a world and society now where we want these things to happen lickety-split, and, good things come to those who wait. So those are my thoughts on progress. We're going to watch the end of this, and then we're going to watch a little bit of 3D for me prepping the next scene. I have that. I think that's like half an hour shortened down to 10 minutes. And then we're going to do a little bit of painting, and that's going to be our day today, and I'm looking forward to it. Oleg, yeah, I totally agree with PureRef. I didn't use it for a while, and now that I'm actually trying to paint stuff, for a while I was just bringing the image into Photoshop, and I think keeping it on the outside is better. It's been too long since I've been using it. So many of the people that I look up to and admire in this type of work use it that I'd be stupid not to be using it. And I think it's donation based. They only ask for like a 5 or 10 euro donation, and I feel like if you use it a couple of times, it's worth that. So yeah, PureRef is great. Also, there's a link in the chat, or the comments. I finally got around my like very simple kind of idiot proof. What's it called? Triangle brush. If you guys want to play with it, go for it. It is there. If you have any problems with it, let me know. But it's just an ABR, a super small ABR file. Oleg, what did you think of it, my man? I'm glad you saw it. I kind of just snuck it into the last post when I finally remembered that I had forgotten. Yeah, I love drawing with it. So maybe the simple things can be good, right? Nothing fancy, nothing hard to learn. I don't think, as far as using it, technically at least. Oh, I'm glad you like it. Cheers, buddy. I appreciate it. What's going on, Michaela? Welcome. Hello, missus. What's that?
Sorry,
Coffee
coffee.
cup?
No, streamer, sorry.
Oh, nope, not in here. That was my wonderful wife making some coffee. Yeah, this is about done. And yeah, you can see I took like 2 or 3 tries at the sky. First try made it worse. Second try, I think, made it better. I think it still could be better. It doesn't have the depth or perspective that a sky typically has. And I kind of messed with that and didn't really succeed. Another thing, I still have to get better at painting skies, but we'll keep on learning. Yeah, I like the way that the colors. I liked how the color palette finished. I felt like that was good. Yeah. So that was that one. That was fun. Thank you guys for coming along for that one. Little details. Noodle. We're gonna have to completely reshape the building today, or at least in this next painting. How much we'll get done with it today, I have no idea. But I don't like the shape of the building that I put in, and I didn't change it or work on it in 3D intentionally, thinking that it would be good. Because here I just kind of repainted the existing building. Or the existing bash. This is 3 different buildings from the kit. The heavy metal kit. Okay, we can close that. We can get this one started. I don't think there's that much interesting in 3D, but it'll at least give you guys an idea of how I got there. Oh, and I should show you what we're working towards. And I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I don't like the building in the one that we're going to look at now. So now we're going to look at this image, or at least this is what it looks like rendered. And it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings. Very like poorly bashed together, almost embarrassingly bad. And so we're going to have to fix that. But I feel like that'll be a good practice for me in working in 2D, right? Like I have some ideas, I have some perspective lines, I have like kind of a general shape that I like, but not a specific form. And so could have done better on the kit bashing side on my part, but intentionally did not try and waste time in 3D on that. It wouldn't be wasting time, but left that challenge for 2D. So yeah, back to the original kit. You guys can see that. Yes, you can. And it's one of those sketches that I quite liked. The only thing that I think is important, it's the second from the last one, if that pops up again. The only important thing I think to realize, or the thing that's like worth maybe incorporating into your 3D workflow, because this is obviously super duper rough, is that whenever I have these thumbnails, I tend to start by getting like the main building and the camera at least kind of roughed in together, so that once those are in place, I can start building the scene around it. Because how big the actual mountains are and everything else, I don't care as long as they sit inside of the picture frame the way that I intended them to. And you know, so from there we're just kind of roughing in some buildings and doing all that fun stuff, or some mountains, and yeah, moving forward. For the last time-lapse paint over, I didn't use that brush at all. That's the brush that I use for sketching. And really only for sketching, because there's no texture to it, there's no opacity to it. It's a much more drawing brush than a sketching brush. So if you watch any of my thumbnail videos, Claudio, that's the brush that I'm using when I'm painting, drawing with solid colors. The brushes that I was using for the paint over are a combination of brushes that I've downloaded from other artists over the years. A couple of them were from Evident Design, or Evident. Let me see. While this is playing, unless you guys have questions about the 3D, I don't have that much else I think to say about it. Some of them are from Evident Design, and I can post these into the comments later. If you're listening to these later, hopefully I remembered to put them down there in the comments. If not, leave a comment for me to do it. Evident YouTube, I think. Walid something, I believe is his name. And he has a. Oops, there is. Nope, that's not it. I might have to find them. Is this it? Oh wait, no. Walid Fagali. Cool name. So he has a bunch of painting videos on this channel, and he gives away his brushes. So a couple of them are from him, and then a couple of them are, I believe, from the Sparth Gumroad, I think. Yeah, Milan, I'm pretty sure that one's from him, and I'm pretty sure the one that looks like the state of Wisconsin is also from him. And then there were some rocks ones that I'm pretty sure I got from... is it on here? I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% positive, I'm pretty sure I got from Sparth. And then the other ones, I can't give those ones away, or I don't feel comfortable giving those ones away. The Sparth ones I paid for, obviously he's selling them. I think Walid, you have to put your email in. I think that's that I got a couple of them from him, and I'm sure I got them from other people. But I only used, I think, like 4 or 5 brushes. I did spend a little time before I repainted that one playing with some of the brushes, looking for like specific characteristics that I wanted as far as like how hard the edge is, how it feathers, how much texture is in it. And I didn't make them, so they're not really mine to give away, even if they are free to download. But yeah, so I have a whole bunch of brushes that I've just been accumulating for a long time, and I don't use many of them, to be 100% honest. Oh, and the other ones, there's a cloud brush that I use a lot. I don't think I used it in that painting. That was from Steambot Studios. I'm just going to put... They do some really cool stuff. They're based out of Quebec, I believe. They do some really cool stuff. They have a really cool book about speed painting, and you can buy some of their brushes and stuff for like $4 or $5 or something like that. So hopefully that's helpful if you guys are looking for brushes. Patrick, what is going on, buddy? I hope you're doing well, my friend. Thank you for joining me yesterday and for teaching me what you know about, or at least some of what you know, about Tyflow. I had a blast. I cannot wait for the next one where I get to teach you some stuff. And I really look forward to actually trying Tyflow and having you tell me why I'm doing wrong. And hopefully Chop as well. But that was awesome, man. Good to see you. Thank you again. It was awesome. Hope you have a beer. It's nighttime over there, so you really have no excuses. Okay, so this is almost done. You can see I don't even hit render here until it's all almost roughed out. Let's see what it updates to this first time. I'm not entirely sure. And that's pretty close to where it ends. I didn't spend much time on like lighting or depth or anything like that. I changed the sun maybe once, maybe twice, brighten it a little bit by decreasing the fog, and then rendered. I think I changed the amount of bump. I noodle here. So like, again, this is only 30 minutes of time in 3D, and we're like 2/3 of the way through it. And so I feel like I should just be stopping when I just hit render. I'm like, that's enough. I'm not going to get more out of that. This is wasted 15 minutes. Because part of this is efficiency and part of it's learning how to paint in Photoshop. So I'm still working on that. But I did this, the last one, and the other one all together at once. So I could avoid 3D, at least for personal work, for a couple of days. And, you know, spend my 3D time working on client stuff. So... yes, Oleg, all of these cliffs are just like the same cliff texture I use from, it's like Cliff Rock something from textures.com. It's not right. Hopefully this will change pretty significantly in the painting period. Alt Shift, Patrick, it's not RDT. RDT makes amazing textures, and they're starting to put out some ones that cover more ground. But a lot of them are kind of tight little areas. So there's just a rock that I found on textures.com, and I like it, and it kind of works when you scale it up massively, as long as this is what you're looking for. And yeah, the lazy man approach. I didn't even try any other rocks. Put one in, it breaks up the profile of like the very simple geometry I have in the scene. And if I was trying to make this into like a rendered final, I would spend more time with that. I might scatter some stuff. I might add a few different layers of different kind of rocks so it looks more realistic. But for my purposes, you know, speed is really the goal on that one. Jean-Marc, yes, I really like their Urbance project. They have like a very like wide range of styles that's super beautiful. And the Urbance one, as I remember it, I haven't looked at it in a while, but it reminds me a bit of the Spider-Verse stuff. Like there's some Spider-Verse vibes to that one. But yeah, RDT, Real Displacement Textures, is awesome. Christian, I believe, is the guy who makes all of those and runs that, and I've met him a couple of times. Super nice dude as well. Very passionate about creating like a really, really high quality product. And they show up pretty frequently in my renderings, but I haven't looked for a good rock replacement option. I do have a couple of layers for this one. I'm not sure if I'm going to use them or not. I don't have a game plan. Nor do I really have this is probably problematic. I don't know what I want this image to look like as far as like mood, lighting, colors. which is a little scary for painting. But, gotta learn it. Gotta learn it. Also, Christoph, thank you. Thank you for the correction. I'm actually, Claudio, using F-Storm, not... Oh, okay. You corrected yourself. I've been using F-Storm since around its beta. Without getting into a lot of details, I have some misgivings about where it's at now, especially as I'm doing more and more like personal work that's pretty far away from ArcViz. But it's what I'm fastest in at this particular moment. I've been meaning to really give Redshift a test run. The last time I opened it to do that, I looked at the shader and I'm like, holy hell. That's a lot of complexity. But one of my current misgivings with F-Storm is that I want more features than it has, or that it looks like Andre, the developer, is planning on doing. So I need to start looking around a bit for the new one. So Redshift is an option, and V-Ray. V-Ray's currently the kind of forerunner of going back to V-Ray. That's what I started using way back in the day, and that's what I think I'll probably end up returning to. Because it's awesome. And they have all the features under the sun, and I'm looking for more features. So okay, so this is where we're at. What time is it? 1:32, so we're like a half an hour in. So we have a half an hour to try to get a start on this guy. And we can close this tab group. I don't know how far we're going to make it today. I do not have... The last one I had an idea of what I was kind of trying to get when I started. This time, very much not. I like the composition. I like the direction that the light's coming in. But I don't... Maybe what we'll do for this one is... grown-up things, Ian. You won't be faulted for that, my friend. Thank you for stopping by. And we will see you soon. Good luck with the grown-up things. I have to get back to them after this as well. I feel your pain. Let's put on some tunes. I've been looking into some other options so that we're not only listening to the same... what is going on? The same album from Jay. Let's see here. You guys should be able to hear that. I love this album, but these things are continuing to go on. We can use a little bit of variety. So there'll be some new music in the future. I think. Fingers crossed. Getting it figured out. But not figured out yet. You know what I'm thinking we might do is let's pull up... let's see if we can maybe look at a sky and find a sky to set the mood. Not a way that I typically work. Usually I have a pretty clear idea of what I'm looking for. Let's look at the Photo Bash skies. This is kind of foggy. I'm not... I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Let's start with dramatic skies. I tend to like dramatic skies. Let's see if any of them kind of speak to me in this. And let's think the kind of shapes that we want. Some fanny skies might be cool. Let's see what we can find. Because I think if I was to jump in and start painting right now with no idea, we're going to run into the same mess as last time, which is just kind of like making marks for the sake of making marks. Which, not the worst solution in the world. But I think if we can get a sky in there, then we'll kind of have a color palette and a lighting style that we can at least start working towards. And it'll force me to change the rendering, which is a good thing. So let's see what we can find. So we want fanning, and we want fanning towards the direction of the sun. One of my pet peeves whenever I notice it in renderings is when the sky and the clouds have been mirrored for compositional reasons or whatever else, and then the sky, you don't see the sun, but the light in the sky is coming from the left and the image is coming from the right, or vice versa. You guys got to be mindful of that shit. Skies are lit, right? Clouds have a shape based off of the direction the light's coming from. Do we want to go? No. This is kind of a cool sky. That's a cool sky, but the sun's kind of back here, kind of setting. I don't think that's right for this image. I like that sky though. Where'd clothes go? What the? Windows, what are you doing to me? There we go. Okay, let's continue looking. Let's continue looking. I think dramatic would be cool. I'm not against going dusk on this, but I feel like we've done a bunch of dusk paintings, and I feel like I need to get better at painting actual light, actual sunlight. So for purely practical practice reasons, I don't want to go dusk. I want there to be some sunlight in this. Maybe dramatic is too dramatic for this image. Yeah, I don't see anything that like really speaks to me for this one. Let's see what Blue Skies gives us. Make the developers that are, you know, not listening happy. And the nice thing, obviously, with like these types of clouds is that they're relatively high contrast, and as a result, it becomes a strong compositional instrument. I don't think that's the shape that I want, but it could be. We'll drag it in and leave it there. See what other options we can find. That's kind of cool. Leave that guy in there. I'm liking this light. It's coming from the left, which means it would be going fanning. Let's see here. Well, that might be a winner. At glance, I didn't think that one was going to work, but I think that might not be true. Let's look through the rest of this. This is the last folder that we're going to look through. And if you're wondering where all these skies came from, they came from PhotoBash, and they have these like big sky packs that are super cheap. And the pictures aren't all the same quality, but they tend to be pretty high quality and usable. So if you're looking for giant, you know, references of clouds without spending like $200 for a sky pack, PhotoBash. And they got a bunch of other cool stuff in there. Depending on what you're trying to do, they have a lot of stuff. Like a lot of their stuff is for like matte painters and concept artists. So they have a lot of cool stuff if you feel like learning some matte painting techniques. Okay, let's see if we can't either get one of these to work or something else. So we already have a sky matte for the base, and what I'm thinking in my head here, as far as process goes, is I'm going to see if I can get kind of like a mood established without painting and then paint. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but that's the idea at the moment. So let's have a look at these skies. This one, we have light coming in. It's kind of a little bit from behind the camera, but I think it's a little bit to the left. Let's see what we think about this one if we make it big. At a glance, I'm gonna say no. We'll do a couple of quick. I am just gonna work in black and white because I'm not worried about color right now, and I'm not actually working in black and white. But like, I don't want to have to bother color correcting to figure out if this is gonna look cool or not. I am going to like, I am gonna quickly adjust some like values to see if this is what I want to have happen. What happened? There we go. Gradient. And this is not dissimilar from how I tend to look for skies in like professional work, for that matter. We know that we want to now. Right now, when I'm making like this, like raising the blacks, I'm just looking at the horizon to see if I can get everything to kind of sit together. Right, because obviously that cloud down there is way too dark, and now it looks like it's starting to sit in a bit more. And then the whole thing needs to come up a bit. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm gonna take a look at this next one that had this kind of like weird, crazy. I guess that's some sort of cirrus cloud. That feels like sci-fi, which is kind of cool. But this is another one that's a little bit backlit. I'm gonna make something with this sky, but I don't think that this is the image to do it. That sky wants some attention, and there's room in this for this. But I feel like this is a sky that I want to make like its own composition out of. So we're just gonna delete that one right off the bat for this. And then let's look at this guy. And we can kind of look at the clouds. This one, we got light coming in from the other direction again. See these clouds are all lit with the camera, with the sun kind of behind the camera, and then this image has it coming from the other direction. Now that being said, we're going to paint these pretty heavily, so we could just look at these as compositional studies for clouds, and we could repaint the light on them, because that's the whole idea of painting, right? So maybe let's think a little bit more cleanly or freely about it. And so we can also just kind of sketch them around. No, that looked bad. That seems too deliberate. Too deliberate. Phoenix Force from X-Men. Oh, yes. Took me a minute to figure out what you were referencing. I think we're just going to go with this one. I don't want to search all day looking for a sky. I like kind of like the shapes of these, if not all the specifics. F it. We'll commit to this and we'll fix it as we go along, I think. I think that's going to be the plan. So let's make some basic adjustments here, because just because we're using a blue sky does not mean that we're going developer blue. And we'll just do some kind of like down and dirty adjustments to get this to start to sit in just a smidge. And then we'll make some down here on this guy. Bring a little bit of coolness into the shadows. Take out a little bit of the red. Just to kind of quickly, I don't like these dark clouds on the top. It doesn't matter. All right, so we at least have something that kind of sits together compared to where we started. So then the idea for this is like, it's basically like a blue with like a grayish, warmish rock sunlight. I think we can probably make that work. I think it's enough to get us started. Obviously, we are not going to finish this one today, and I don't think that we're actually probably going to get it to a point that we really like it, but that's okay. Okay, so what were the lessons from the last one? The last one, I thought I should have painted over things in a more heavy-handed, rough manner from the get-go, and so we're going to do that. We're going to kind of take these clouds, and I know we've spent a bunch of time just now looking at them, but we are going to try to get some of these colors in here, but we're going to try to get the actual clouds as far as a texture out. At least that's my thinking. I do have a question for you guys, of you folks listening. Are any of you like looking at me? Do any of you guys do this kind of stuff, and I just don't know about it? And you're a source of wisdom and tips that I can rely upon to help me out of the jams that I'm getting myself into. I know a lot of you guys are ArcViz artists, like myself, which obviously I'm a fan of. But who knows? Maybe we have a concept artist hanging out in the crowd that has some pointers for me. I am not above getting help by any means. Quite the opposite. We had Ian in the chat yesterday giving us all kinds of tips on tie flow, which was awesome. I don't know if he's here today, but if you are, or if you listen later, thank you, buddy. That was very much appreciated by both myself and Patrick. And in case we did not express that live, I'm expressing it again now. Okay. Big fan of like desaturated blue skies, both in like photorealistic work and in this type of thing. So this is the same brush I used for it last time for like blocking in the sky. It's just this like rectangle with texture built into it, and it's a really high resolution. And so it's great for like blocking in the sky and just getting some kind of non-photorealistic texture built into this whole thing. Let's get some desaturated. Okay. And again, as per usual, like this little period gives you like a real chance, I feel like, to think whilst just moving your hand, basically. And got a little carried away with bringing in some saturation in that corner. So we're going to tone that back. And we know that this is going to be a little bit dark, so having a little bit of like a cloud or bright spot at very least in the sky behind that is going to help us. Okay. And then we're just going to bring that mask up and invert it and get some... Oops. Invert. Oh, there we go. And we're just going to do the same thing basically with... there we go. We're going to do the same thing with everything down here, only with a little bit more intent in the sense of trying to give all of this some kind of texture. Excuse me. Some kind of texture, but also just really just, you know, all of this kind of crazy, not realistic rock. Gotta go. Gotta go. And I'm actually... When I was doing this in 3D, I liked the way that I drew. The mountains were like kind of like a very V-shaped sweeping mountain range, basically just from like my shorthand of sketching. But I was thinking about spending more time trying to recreate that in 3D, and opted against it. So I'm like, no, you should figure out and learn how to paint that. But I'm going to try to bring a bit more of that into this. And so then this brush, if you guys are at all curious, is making like those types of shapes, which, especially like this, gives us like a rocky, painty texture. I think this is the Sparth brush that I grabbed. That square, I'm not sure who the square was by. We're not going to be too careful about any of this. Just trying to get in a nice, clean palette. And one thing that I am thinking about quite a bit is basically, I'm imagining this in my head as much as possible so that we can start to get in, hopefully, fingers crossed, like a basic value structure before we start really worrying about painting, because I feel like that's something that I've been not doing a good job of, and I feel like I'm having problems as a result of not controlling my values. So we're gonna try and be a little bit more mindful of it, and we'll see how that ends up actually working out for us. Who knows? One of the things, I don't have a navigator window open. I know that I'm painting with green right now, and these are supposed to be warm. I'm just kind of picking values off of the image here, and so I am painting with color. I'm just not paying attention to what the colors are, which I think could be cool. It's an experiment. Well, I got a question. Claudio, for my sketches, if you're looking through my Droki page, it's a pretty mixed bag as far as whether or not the original HDRI sky is still in there. It really depends on how much I adjusted things in post, whether or not you can see the... I like using the HDRI sky when it works for me, because obviously I was thinking about that with the composition. And a lot of Peter Guthrie skies, which is who I usually use, a lot of his are like 14,000 pixels wide or whatever else. So if you have a little bit of atmosphere in that rendering, even if it's light atmosphere, and a little bit of lens blur on it, they tend to look really nice, even at final resolutions. But sometimes you want a very specific sky, you want more drama or less drama, or more and less clouds. Sometimes I paint them out, sometimes I put a new sky in. It's really all over the place, but I do like when the HDRI sky is working for me, I leave it in, because you know that the lighting in the scene is going to exactly match the clouds in there. And even though you can tweak things a little bit left and right and all that, that is one of those things that I think does come out to the viewer as far as the realism go. They wouldn't be able to put their finger on it and say that the sky and the scene match perfectly. And I think when they don't line up, again, clients generally will not be able to look at it and say those don't match. But there's kind of like that unconscious something feels wrong. Let's turn a chair and see if that is going to fix it. Excuse me. So I do like using them when it works, but I don't have any hard and fast rules on it by any means. And then I was just going to say something else about it, and I lost my track of thought. Whatever that. I can barely speak today. What's wrong with today's Tuesday? But yeah, I don't have a rule, I guess is what I'm trying to say with all of that. David, thank you for that recommendation. I am probably going to watch that later today or tomorrow morning. Maybe I'll do that as practice in the morning. But any recommendations like that are amazing. There's a lot of different styles that people use for painting clouds. I feel like I don't have one that I like the most. Not like I want my clouds to look like that when I learn how to paint them. But it's kind of the same with me trying to learn how to paint people, or draw people first. I'll learn how to paint them after. There's a lot of different methods that people use, and I am slowly but surely kind of like trying to at least learn all of the methods in the sense of like understand what they're doing. And the hope from that is that eventually I'll find one or some combination of them that works for me. But every little one you try, even if it's like, the box method doesn't really work for me. The pill method, that seems to be working better, whatever they might be, they all inform you. The more you know, the better. Even if you don't use all of them, like that knowledge is not wasted. And I feel like clouds are the same way. And the other thing I was going to say about there's something I was going to say about skies, HDRIs, replacing them, and I've forgotten it now. But the other thing I will say is that it's always a bummer when you have an HDRI sky that looks great, and it's not until you render it out at full res that you realize that at full resolution it looks really pixelated compared to the rest of the image. Luckily, like some of Peter Guthrie's older skies fall into that category, unfortunately. Luckily, he does provide, when you buy his skies, he does provide the original set of backplates that he uses for it. And so you can replace it. You still have to, like, if you want things exactly right, you need to usually distort things because obviously it's being projected onto a sphere, and then a camera lens, depending on how wide it is distorting it again. But you can usually fix it in post if it's just like, oh, it just looks noisy or low res. One of the things I do a lot, especially when I'm working with an HDRI that is high res, is I will go and in the alpha environment, so not if I get the sunlight right where I want it, but the clouds, they're either making some like bad tangents or they just don't quite work compositionally and they're just a little bit off. I'll take the same map and drop it into the alpha environment and then turn it just a little bit to the, like, there's some leeway. It doesn't have to be perfect, obviously, as far as the two matching. But if the clouds compositionally would work a little bit better, a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right or mirrored or whatever else, and I don't want to adjust the scene lighting, I'll use an alpha environment and just adjust that. Yeah, Michaela, there's a reason you guys haven't seen me try to draw people yet. I very much do not feel comfortable with that. But that's why I'm working on it. One of these days. If I'm doing it live, it at least suggests that, I'm not entirely dismayed with how well I'm doing. Okay, so I'm not sure what the scale I want for these rocks to be yet. That's okay. But yeah, as long as we're talking about practice and growth and whatnot, kind of roughly today. One of the things I do like doing a lot is if there's an artist that I respect, or either because I like him or her, or because I like their end results. If they have a thing that they do that either doesn't make sense to me, or I look at it and be like, oh, I would never want to work that way, that looks terrible, that doesn't mean it's not worth trying, because you really can't evaluate what's going to work for you or what you can learn until you try it. I don't think that a lot of the YouTube videos that I've been watching from like speed painters and the like, speed painters, concept artists that are kind of doing like this type of thing, a lot of those work in a way that I look at and I'm like, that would do nothing for me. That I do not like that idea. But I still try it. Like, it's worth an hour to be like, okay, I'm going to put my predispositions or prejudices aside. I'm going to spend an hour doing what he does or what she does or what she is telling me to do and see what I actually think afterwards. And oftentimes, if the end result wasn't something that I really wanted to be able to do in the first place, it's not necessarily going to be like, oh, I'm changing my mind on my aesthetic values. But you still learn something from the way that they're thinking, that you don't get just from like reading their book or watching them work or studying their artwork. Sitting down and actually trying to do it their way is super duper valuable. At least it is to me, and I would recommend that you guys at least try it. If they're successful and they're competent in doing the thing that you're trying to do, there's probably something to learn, right? But I do find it very hard to learn anything just by watching a tutorial. Similarly, I don't like just following a tutorial in the sense of first do this, then do that, then do this, right? Like, that's not a bad way to learn technical skills. But if you want to make it your own, if you want to make it a tool for yourself, you really need to, after you do the following or learning, do it and like try and use it to some end of your own choosing. And what that'll do is it'll force you to actually grapple with the tool. If we look at yesterday's tutorial from Patrick, if in a week or 2 weeks when I get down and do it, if all I did was go through and make like that first firework example, I would learn a little bit of something because I'm still interfacing with the software. But I wouldn't learn anything major, right? Because I'm just following steps. I'm not actually creating or making the software do what I want it to do. So my plan for that, I don't have a clear idea yet of what I want to make, but now that I have an idea of how Patrick likes to use it, right? I have some level of what feels like understanding of how it wants to work. I'm going to think of something that I think it can do, and then I'm going to try and make it do it. Marvelous Designer. I'm guessing a lot of you folks know Marvelous Designer, and I'm guessing most of you folks, like myself, I'm definitely not excluded from this, have gone in and taken a throw and blanket, tossed it on a couch, rumpled it up, and said, "Look how amazingly not 3D this looks because it's got all these beautiful wrinkles, and look, I can change the materials, and it looks like an even more not CG piece of cloth." Marvelous Designer wants to make those things messy, right? Like the way that the program is set up, making things that way is a somewhat trivial task. On the other hand, if you want to go in and fold a blanket the way that it would actually be folded, so it has a sense of volume, so that it looks neatly folded, but it doesn't look like those CG napkins you see everywhere that just look awful. But you do want it to look neat, right? Like messy in Marvelous Designer is really easy to create. Is really easy to create that mess and make it look like, whoa, that for 3D, that's amazing. Doing that neatly is harder, at least it was for me. And so the first time I had to go in and really make something look neat was hard. But by sitting and grappling with the software and figuring out a method that worked for me of how to actually like fold things so that it looked like, a professional folder folded it and not me just hastily making my bed in the morning, that was really tough. But by the end of it, I felt like I had a much bigger grasp of the software. And that's same for like any technique, in my estimation. Doosan, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Thank you for coming by and hanging out. We're sketching, and it looks like we're sketching in black and white. That's what it looks like in color. But I'm not looking at it in color right now. I'm looking at it in black and white. And I'm still kind of thinking about what I want to do with this one. I think today it's already what? It's past 2. So, we're almost done for today. And so we're not even going to really worry about color. I do have a pretty busy afternoon from a client standpoint. So tomorrow we might be painting this. Maybe I'll find some time to finish it and we'll watch a time lapse. I do not know. But I will say, as I'm continuing to doodle, and I'm kind of doodling on this building. I don't know what I want this thing to look like. I just know I don't like the profile of it as it is. So I'm just kind of adding stuff in. So we might be doing this tomorrow. We might be doing something else. I don't really know. But as long as we're kind of starting to wrap up here, I've gotten a handful of images for Friday. I do have bad news regarding the great Thomas Dubois. Unfortunately, his schedule is super booked this week. Client work. And so, things being what they are, you cannot fault a man for being busy right now. And so he is not going to be able to join us for this week's paintover. He is going to, when he has time, do something with me, which I'm very excited for, about process or painting or thinking or whatever it might be. And so I'm very much looking forward to that, but it'll be me painting again this week. I have a handful of drawings already, but if you guys want to get into the queue for that, please send one of your images to mike@droki.com. And, we'll get it. I'm basically just kind of doing them as they come in. which puts me usually like a little bit over a week in advance, as far as like enough to do. But I'm going to try to do 3 or 4 again this week. I felt like 4 is maybe a little bit rushed. I think 3 so that we can talk about them and watch a time lapse. I think that's the sweet spot. Can I recommend some YouTube channels from the top of my head? I'm sure that I can, because I have it playing often in the background, especially when I'm doing work that doesn't require me to like fully zone in, like modeling a building or something like that. For concept art and speed painting you mentioned. There's a guy named Martin Deesh. Oh God, I can't pronounce his last name. I have one of his books, I believe, but I can't read that from here. His YouTube page is Dechambeau, Dechambo. He's got some really cool. He doesn't talk over them, so he's not explaining what he's doing. You're just kind of like seeing time lapses of his work, and so you can't really work to that one. That's one of the ones I like to watch while something's rendering, or I'm sitting and having a whiskey at the end of the day, or if my wife is not paying attention to the TV and I can put on whatever I want. He has some really, really cool stuff. Marco Bucci, I've mentioned a bunch of times. Super duper good. All painting stuff. Anything on FZD School, which is the Fengzhou Design School. They have hour-long tutorials on different techniques where Fengzhou himself draws or paints something, and then does like a narrated, usually speeds it up. A couple of them are real time. I like that he does both. But he then talks over and like explains what he's doing, and it's really, I have watched I think all like 100+ design cinemas. I feel like there's a lot to be garnered from him, so definitely check him out. I have bought Sparth on the same Gumroad that I linked earlier. Sparth has a few of his speed paintings with narration on Gumroad for I think it's like $5, $10, or $15 each, and it's like 2 hours of him painting and talking. He's one of my heroes, and so watching that's always pretty awesome for me. Other speed painters that I really like, there's a handful others, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But I hope that'll get you started, and if you're watching some of those, they'll at least they will suggest more, because there's definitely more that I'm not thinking of. Tomorrow I'll try and do a quick search through some of the things that I subscribe to and put links into what I like. I'm not at heads yet, Michaela. I do have some Loomis books. Andrew Loomis? I think Andrew Loomis. Again, I can't read it from here. I have one of his books over there. But I'm not even worrying about heads yet, faces. No, I'm just worrying about like I want to get like gesture down, and I haven't found one single method that like really works for me. But I'm glad to hear that the Loomis method is working for you with the head, and I'm assuming you mean by the head the face, because we'll have to take that on. Oh, David, and more cloud tutorials, awesome. That's amazing. Thank you very much. So I think that's where, we didn't make a ton of progress on this, but, that's where it started. I feel like we have a shape to kind of start to work towards. The values still need some work, right? Those mountains seem too close. Those ones seem too far. Here's what it looks like currently in color. Yeah, even not looking at color, we still have, like, the values that were in it before we started painting. All kind of in it, right? I like that method of just looking at this, but you're still getting some color values, and then we can tweak them when this gets a little bit further along. And I still have to fix the building, and I'm still working on that. Trying to think if there's anything else that I got for you guys. That's all I got today. As always, thank you and for coming and hanging out, and for the suggestions and the tips and the questions and the comments. I really appreciate it. A couple of you guys have posted about some of these live streams and shared some of the videos, and I really appreciate that. It always makes me feel good to hear that. So thank you for that encouragement. Let's call it encouragement or endorsement. It feels good. It keeps me motivated to continue doing these. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So we'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, I hope everyone is, finding a way to stay positive and not pay too much attention or more attention than they need to everything going on in the world. And, making some cool stuff and learning stuff here, somewhere else. Who knows? But staying mentally active. We will talk to you guys all soon. Thank you. Until tomorrow, be well, stay healthy, stay positive. Let's do some awkward boops, and then we're out. We got one boop. Oh, come on, Wacom. You can do it. Oh, dear Lord. See, it's just getting worse. Boop.